Welcome to the Addison podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have Rain here today to talk about her experience in the Mastermind. And before I ask her all of the burning questions that you guys might have about the Mastermind, I want to talk about this just a little bit because, well, first, hi Rain.
Hi.
I want to talk about this just a little bit because Rain and I have a very nuanced relationship. She's become a really close friend. We're going on a meditation retreat together in March. She's been my OBM for I think over 2 years now. And then in addition to that, I've also been coaching her for probably about like 4 on and off, right? So she was actually in TVA, one of the very first rounds, and I helped her really build the foundation for her kind of OBM business at the time. You were doing some other things as well too, but from there, after taking a break together, you invested in the Mastermind, even though you were my OBM. And so I want to talk about this because I think we had a lot of conversation prior to you investing in the Mastermind. And we've, even shared about this on the podcast before, but just like the boundaries that we have and the standards that we hold and, how we handle holding that relationship and stuff. But I wanted to bring Rain back on the podcast to really highlight this again, because Rain has seen the entire back end of my business and how I navigate things in both my life and my business. She's literally stayed at my house. She was there the morning of my wedding. She met all my friends at my bachelorette. And yet I'm still, coaching her, and she's still my OBM and runs the entire back end of my business. And so I think that this is such a cool topic to cover, because I think that there's a lot of people that, if you actually objectively looked at the back end of your business or the way that you handle things, you wouldn't even hire yourself. And so I think it says a lot about just the Mastermind space and the relationship that we've cultivated. The fact that, now you're going to be in the Mastermind for your 3rd round. So like a full year and a half, you just re-signed. And I think the thing about leadership is that your clients are always watching you. They're not necessarily watching you, with their eyes, but they might be watching you subconsciously. So not necessarily just what you teach, but how you show up, how you handle things, how your like overall leadership capabilities. And I know for me, even me being an OBM years ago and working in the back end of a lot of clients' businesses, even to this day, something we're always working on is leadership, embodiment, practicing what you preach. Because I even have clients that start working with me where I'm like, I wouldn't hire you because I can see the drama that is happening behind the scenes in your business. And so those are things we need to clean up. And so when I say clients are always watching you, I mean, if you're not holding yourself to the same standards you expect of them, that can be a silent sales killer. So let me ask you this as we're having this conversation. Are you actually leading yourself first? And just as an example, I think, there's a lot of people online that tell their clients to, let's say, like invest in themselves or take bold action or trust the process or, have the right systems in their business or use Pinterest marketing or, whatever you're claiming online. But behind the scenes, they're actually like hesitating to invest in their own growth, procrastinating on their launch, or there's tons of mindset drama happening. I can't even tell you how many like mindset coaches come to me and they're like, well, I say this to my clients, but behind the scenes, I wake up and I'm so stressed out and I feel like shit. And like, I don't believe it's actually possible for me, etc. And so they're doubting their ability to actually hit their goals. And your clients in the online space can feel that. It really creates a disconnect and almost makes them hesitant subconsciously to invest with you, because subconsciously they're wondering, if you're not fully leading yourself and I can feel that, how can you lead me? And that's one of the major, ways that we become a match for high ticket clients, is how you're leading yourself, leading into, being like a sovereign, safe container for your clients, whether they're an OBM that works in the back end of your business or a friend or whatever. And so this is why leadership isn't necessarily about just like strategy or teaching. It's about integrity. And when you hold yourself accountable to the standards that you expect of others and you claim online, you naturally create trust with your audience and safety with your audience, again, even if they're seeing the entire back end of how you lead your life. And you create confidence in your audience too. And so that's what converts. So I wanted to just preface with that before we have this conversation with Rain, because I think if you're feeling out of alignment or wondering why sales feel harder or things aren't converting as fast as you want, it's not always a messaging and messaging and marketing issue. Sometimes it's like time to look inward. And I always say mastering your mind and then leading yourself isn't optional. It's the foundation of building that trust, showing authority, and creating consistent sales. So I'm excited to have Rain here to talk a little bit about this, because we're not just selling services here, we're selling trust. And I'm so excited to hear about her experience in the mastermind as well too. So just for everyone that's listening, I want you to actually look at the back end of your business, what you're doing behind the scenes. Like if someone was a fly on the wall and saw how you led your entire day, would they actually want to hire you? And that's like the work that you should be doing right now, not just trying to like shift one, post to create a sale, because that's just silly. So I know that, for Rain, the mastermind has been a space that you've really grown into. And I've seen major shifts in you and your business from TBA, obviously, to the first round of the mastermind, to the second round, which was a little bit different than the first, to now re-signing. And you've obviously been in a little bit of like a one-on-one space with me as well too. So even though your business has expanded and your client load has increased or decreased, or you've made more money, or you've gone through different hard times in your business, the mastermind has always still felt like the right place for you from what you've shared with me. And I think something else that I really want to highlight is how it supported you at different iterations of your business. You don't necessarily have to be just someone that's at a certain income marker in order for the mastermind to expand you and help you grow in your business and support you through the ups and the downs. And that really is just about like the leadership capabilities and the standards and the boundaries and stuff that we work on. It's not about just creating more income. It's about becoming a more conscious human. So I would love to hear from you just your experience, like even growing your income and growing your business. Why has the mastermind still like been a space where it just feels like a home base for you, no matter where you're at in business?
Such a good question and intro altogether. I love everything that you said. Yeah, I mean, the mastermind in general has felt like such a home base for me because, like, there have been so many different eras of my business, and for a long time I wanted to like do it on my own. I wanted to like, no, I can force myself through this and like push myself through this, and I like almost wanted to prove to myself that I could do it on my own. But having support is actually like 10 times better and has added so much value to my business. And I think the reason it always feels like a home base to me is because of that exact piece that you were talking about, like the integrity and becoming a conscious person and the radical responsibility, like all of those pieces combined, there is just always so much space to grow and yeah, and continue to exceed your own expectations in that realm. So I think for me, it's like the mastermind always brings me back to like my highest vision of myself and like what I want to create. But it's also been a space that's like paced me properly through my goals. Like at the beginning of last year, I came in saying like I wanted to make an 100K month, and we were like there was very clear like expectations of, okay, this is exactly how we're going to do this, and I couldn't rush through it. And I remember going to you multiple times and going to the group multiple times and being like, I just want to be there already, or like I just want to get to this goal already. And I like it was always a space that like paced me properly, and I don't know if that's the right way to explain it. Not that I didn't hit my goals rapidly, I really do feel like I did, but it was always this like every step of the way I was supported, every single different piece of the business. Like, oh, my client load is really high now, I need to hire. Okay, well, now that I've hired, I need to learn to manage my team. And now that that's happening, okay, now the client load has changed. And so it's just like every single little piece of the business and era I go through is supported. So I think that that's where and why I feel like it's been a home base, and I can consistently grow over and over and over again. And it's like I'm never actually, I never stop growing.
I like what you said about quick wins and like wanting to be there already, because I mean, I honestly feel like compared to where you were last year, if you look at the numbers and the type of clients that you're serving and stuff objectively, like you did grow fast, but as humans we're like, well, I just want it tomorrow. And something that is really really important as a value to me is that we are stabilizing your income before we're growing it, because in your case, for example, like, and I think any OBM or service provider's case, like I even had someone the other day who joined the mastermind ask me like, what's the best structure for a service provider, like the back end of their business. And I'm like, well, it really depends on what you want. But because of the nature of like you serving your clients at a high level, a lot of people can experience overwhelm. So if we grew from that place, you would be experiencing major burnout and resentment for your business and stuff. And of course, there's still going to be moments like that because business is hard. We don't sugarcoat that on the podcast. I've talked about my cease and desist on my honeymoon many times, and that's just something that I will never forget. So there's going to be hard moments, but I think in the mastermind, one of the biggest values is that we're stabilizing first. So we're not skipping steps. We're not just, you're not going to sit down with me like on that first call where we sat down and you said, I want 100K a year. I was like, okay, let's do that. Because if we're just shooting for, let's say like 30K or 40K or something like that, we're skipping all of these steps that need to, up level in like your standards, your boundaries, how you're serving clients, your systems in the back end, how you hold your team, all of those things, right? And so we would get to a place where you're just burnt out if we skipped those steps. And so when I first launched the mastermind in the first round that you were in, I hadn't fully like put a handle on what the framework is in the mastermind, but now I have gotten to a point where there's this repeatable process. And really what it is we're constantly doing the reprogramming. We're constantly peeling back layers, almost like an onion of like things that are preventing you from, setting the boundaries or holding yourself to a higher standard or leading your team in a good way or feeling scarcity, whatever it is, while we're also then aligning your business to, align with your goals. And then we're executing on that in whatever way that means for you. So like you haven't necessarily been someone that, has been posting every single day where we're like, we've talked about messaging. We've talked about who you're speaking to. We've talked about how to, speak to that level of buyer and what that looks like and, who your audience is. But every single day, we're not like posting on your stories and stuff. It's like very minute shifts that we're making in the back end of your business. And I remember like very specifically on our first call, you were annoyed that I had you look at contracts a little bit in your business. You were like, do I really have to like look at my contracts and make sure, that I'm set up in this way? And I'm like, yes, because if you're working with, 7-figure business owners, something like this is important. And I also remember very clearly, like right before you signed your first, I think like 6K client or something like that, you were wanting to lowball yourself in the pricing because of, some beliefs that came up. And I was like, girl, is this serving, 100K rain? And I think that's what the mastermind is you coming to me and trying to lowball yourself and me being like, nope, is this serving like your future, evolution, and holding you to that standard that you can't always see the bigger vision of because you're stuck in your own ways and your own beliefs. And then you pitch the higher price point. And obviously like that's still one of your clients to this day. So it's just really cool to see how these minute shifts can lead to these massive, things in business, and how it isn't about skipping steps and huge, massive wins. It's about longevity and sustainability. So I would love to hear also what your favorite aspect of being in the mastermind is, or a couple of your favorite aspects if you don't have one, and like your reasoning for continuing for 3 rounds now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's so good too about stabilizing as well, because I really feel like that's what's happened. Like I've seen it a lot of times in the back end of businesses where people will have like a really high income month and then everything drops back down and they like almost pull back from their business. Like as OBM, I've seen that. And like I've been able to have some of my highest income months and like sustain that and not pull back or not like, oh, okay, I don't have to like serve as much or whatever. So I think that like that's such a cool aspect as well, that I've essentially stabilized at this level. And yeah, I think some of my favorite aspects were like I think one of the coolest things that we did that I still use to this day is like we had some nervous system regulation calls and different like tools that we used on live on calls where like we were all together on our Zoom but doing this in our own homes where we were like walking around the room and like dancing or shaking something off or like and it was just such a cool experience because it really like was a pattern interrupt from what you normally do where or like you know humans not you but like what we normally do where it's like, okay, just sit on the Zoom call and talk strategy or whatever. Like it was, that was one of the coolest things for me that I still use. And I also think, like, obviously having one on one support with you or having like the ability to have you review content and things like that is so cool. Or like the whole group and getting their opinions on everything. There were so many times I went in with these like big emotions and these like big things that I wanted to get support on and immediately after I sent the message, I got so much love and support. And I also was like held accountable in many different ways. And I think like having a community of women around you who are also aware of your goals and like can hold you to that as well, not just like the coach but also the people around you in your community and then who are proud of you months later for knowing that you finally did something or that you're like sticking to it or whatever is really 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 cool. It's kind of like an unexplainable feeling and experience really. And yeah, I was gonna say one more thing. Oh yeah, there were multiple times where I was like honestly afraid to share any income things or like share what I've made or share the goal that I had. And it was also a piece of me like getting out of my comfort zone and being able to like still be seen even in the good things. And so it's like I kind of wanted to hide a lot of the times that I didn't want to interact. And so it forces you to be active. It forces you to show yourself and be seen. And like that's where some of the biggest pieces of growth have come from for me because I'm not afraid to say that like last year was a 100K year and that's an incredible like win that I've had. So yeah.
I love that. I've talked a lot on the recent episodes and even in my content, really highlighted those mindset calls because they're twofold. Either, we're doing reprogramming or we do some sort of nervous system regulation or like move to manifest type calls. So you said that that was one of the coolest for you. Can you explain why for someone that's like, what does that even look like?
Well, the reason why is because like it was uncomfortable and that was the best part. Like I think so much of the mastermind made me uncomfortable to grow and like I that's the only way that we get anywhere really. And it was like a cool bonding experience, but we were like walking around and I don't know the exact technique behind it or like what it actually was, but like around our rooms that we started by dancing and then it was shaking and it's like these it's just so like that is just such a tool. And then afterwards the way that you feel is there's like this release and this like you feel regulated after that. And it's like we just so desperately needed that. Like I feel like I really did. And now it's something that I'm like, okay, there was one part of that whole call where we were like you told us to go stand in parts of the room that we would normally not stand in and like take up space in these random areas of the room. So literally every time I'm walking around my house I kind of just like shimmy up against a wall that I like never touched before, and it's just like makes me re-aware of my surroundings and like regulates me in this really weird cool way. And I don't know, it's just something that changed my perspective and like I'll always take that with me. So
Yeah, so the reason that we do that is because we're getting like the reprogramming that we're doing into the body. So as I'm taking you through it, I, just have you start with like small movements and then we move into like embodying what you're calling in, like your intention. So whether it's 100K or 200K or whatever, like how would that version of you move? And you basically, instead of just reprogramming in the mind, you can almost create your own like little dance or movement for the 100K version of you in the body to create safety in the body. So that's why we do that. And that's why a lot of people see great success in the mastermind too, because we're not just sitting around, what strategy do I post? What do I, we're feeling into the body, which is where creativity lies. And it's also a pattern interrupt. And the thing about a pattern interrupt for the subconscious mind is you remember it, it sticks with you. And so when we're in our day to day, typically, if we're just going about a normal mastermind, it's like, okay, I know I'm going to get on Thursday and we're going to sit there and talk about strategy. It's like the same thing every single week, just like you probably wake up the same way every single day and make your coffee and take your shower and get on your computer. And like without a pattern interrupt, the days kind of blend together and you lose creativity too. So it allows us to like come back to ourselves, to open up creative channels and regulate, which obviously we know when we're regulated, that's when business is going to flourish the most, when you have the best ideas, when you serve your clients the best and stuff like that. So pattern interrupts are great for subconscious reprogramming. So I'm glad that you highlighted that.
Yeah, I loved that experience. And it did stick with me like 110%. Yeah. And I would just say, other than that, probably like just the safety of the entire space. It was so, you get vulnerable with the people that are on the calls and you like open up your life to them, and not just like being a friend, but having friend, and like having people, care for you in that moment and share their thoughts and opinions. Like that's just, it's just really, really invaluable when you can connect with other people like that and you're all there with like similar intentions and goals. Or I think like the baseline of why the mastermind is so cool as well is because we're all focused on like being the most in integrity that we can, and like the radical responsibility and you know like being conscious. That is like, I've never seen that anywhere else in the online space, really. And I think that that's like, we're all constantly going back to that intention, or at least that's how I take the mastermind and how I feel walking in. It just is such a sacred space.
And the reason I call like my one-on-one container or certain pieces of my business like the conscious CEO is because by the time you are 32 to 35, kind of depending on the person, you become a memorized set of patterns, behaviors, and personality. And that's based on like your programming prior to that point. So by the time typically where, people are that age, they're so set in their ways that everything is the same. Their income might slowly grow with time, but everything is the same. They're so set in their ways. And so when I think about being conscious, I think about choosing better every single day. And that doesn't mean, placing shame on yourself. It doesn't mean like you can't have, off days or rest days, or it just is choosing to, be better every single day and being conscious of how your actions and your behavior and your habits and your patterns and everything is no longer serving you, so that you can truly be like the happiest version of yourself inside and outside of business. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that. And we even take it as far as like having you guys, at the beginning of like one of the rounds of the mastermind, which is something I'm going to bring back this round. I had people do an audit of even their time, like how much time are you spending on your phone? What is your screen time? What does that actually look like? Because people get so stuck in like, I just want to grow, and they spend so much time scrolling and like so much time in other people's business and noise and comparing, and like that's another reason, like a silent sales killer. So we look at everything down to like how you're taking care of your body, to things like that actually can, create shifts for you in the long term. And so some of the shifts in the mastermind are like, sustainable money wins. And then the other ones that we celebrate too are like, I went on a vacation and I didn't think about my business the whole time. And it's like, that's incredible because you gave yourself the time to be present, and you chose better. So I love that. Are there any like key pivotal moments or shifts that you can remember from our work together that you want to share?
Um, One of these ones are going to sound really, they just might sound like unconventional or like whatever, but I'm just going to share them because I think they're important. The mastermind helps me and has helped me like brush my teeth and do daily care tasks, like taking care of myself and like getting dressed for the day. Like those little things were something intentional that I came in to work on. And like, I feel like I've conquered a lot of those, which is incredible. And like that's been very pivotal for me. Another one I can remember is I had to set a really hard boundary with a client, and Addison and I just so happened to be on a one-on-one call at the time, and I was like shaking, like I was so terrified to set this boundary. And she like forced me to send the message on the call, and like it was obviously with my best
Forced or held
but
space for
held
it.
space for me
I'm
to
joking.
do it. But it was one of those moments where I was so held, like, that I'll never forget that moment. And now it's like every single time I have to reset a boundary or like whatever, have a hard conversation, that is something that's with me all the time, because I'm like, no, if Addison was right here with me, like she would have my back. Like, so that,
Well, from that moment forward to those boundaries have been easier for you to set on your own. And you haven't even had to come and say, hey, should I, what do I do about this? You've just said it. Like you've, held yourself through it and created that. I don't know, you truly become a leader in those situations.
yeah, so that, so many better words to describe my experience, but yeah. I probably those are the biggest ones. Maybe, yeah, I think that that's pretty much, that's a lot. I mean, every single day was like pivotal for me. I like remember every moment of it. So, and that's why I keep coming back, because I love it. Every single day is great.
How would you describe the support in the mastermind? I know we talked a little bit about those like mindset or nervous system regulation calls. Obviously, those happen like once a month, but you also get access to one on one hypnotherapy recordings or live calls, um, other one on one calls, and then messaging and stuff like that. Maybe you can just tell someone who is more of an analytical buyer that likes to see like what they get and what the support is like and how that's felt for you. I think that would be cool to share too.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most supported space I've ever been in. I think like when Addison does something, she does it 110% of the way, within her like wonderful boundaries and whatever guidelines. And so like what I get from it, and what I think is like so valuable about the support is like, yeah, the content review is fantastic and wonderful, and always enhances my content. Every single time I have Addison look at a piece of content, and like the group, it like performs 10 times better. It's wonderful. The group chats, the calls, like weekly calls with the group, the one-on-ones that you get with Addison, the hypno support, like all of the support for somebody who's logical, like checks all the boxes of what you would want in a mastermind. Like there's really no gap of support, like at all. And I think the other thing is like there's a very perfect divine like balance between what you can get from Addison versus what you get from the group. And I think that's really important, because it like forces you to show up in the group and in the community, and not just like being in the mastermind chats, but you're really just messaging Addison on the side. Like, so there's so much of that as well too. So I think that that's one of the biggest pieces too.
Something that I love about the women that come together is some of our chats when, one person would ask a question, you'd look at the replies and there's like 30 or 40 replies of like everyone either chiming in or just saying, I hear you, you're held in this, like you're not alone. I felt this way too. So there's like this beauty of recognizing that, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through it, but then also getting supported and like being supported in the way that you need, whether it's just, I just want to vent and I just want to
Yeah.
like feel through this, or, do you guys have any actual insight into how I can like change the situation? And I've noticed that in my mastermind that I'm in as well too. Like when I'm flipping through, the group chat or responding to people or asking questions, it's like it's so nice to hear when another business owner is like going through the exact same thing that I am going through or has in the past. And then I recognize like, oh, this is just a part of business. Like there are going to be moments in business where you have to fire a client or you receive a cease and desist, or, a client sends you an email that isn't happy about your container, even though they've seen incredible shifts, or like you can't avoid those situations. And so, like very nuanced situations that you've been through where you're able to like actually share those with the group and be like, how would you handle this? And then just to hear like that you're not alone. I think for me anyways, that's worth the whole value of the mastermind, because then I don't sit in my own drama of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
why is this happening to me kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even after, like, because there's been a transition period between, so I've been in a sort of a tiny one-on-one space. But even like for not having the group for a short period of time, now I think to myself when I have an issue where I'm like, wait, somebody else is probably going through this. Like, there's no way I'm the only one experiencing this. So even leaving the mastermind, I'm thinking like that somebody else has obviously had to be going through this, and it supports me so much because, it really does take you out of that own, like, your own mental drama and your
Mhm.
own. And I wanted to say too, I think like across the board the support is incredible because I I think it's Addison's space in general. She does such a wonderful job, and it's hard to put into words, but like of guiding somebody directly to like the exact transformation that's meant for them. Like, she chimes in at the perfect time with her opinions and thoughts and like her guidance and all the things, and then asks questions at the perfect time as well. And so like it's so intuitive and so intentional the way that she responds, and I feel like that carries through the entire space as well. And that is one of the biggest pieces about support that I think is just so incredible, because when you're venting about a problem and then your coach is like, okay, well, like, what did you want to experience out of this, or like asks a very intentional question from that, it's like, oh, okay, like it really slows down the process to speed up the growth almost. Like it's just such a deep process in just a few questions, and very like not quick conversations, but these conversations that lead to such exponential growth that you might not realize in the moment you're like fully being just guided, and she's, steering you on the right path that you want to go on. So that's like the coolest part to me too.
Yeah, I would call that transformation or like breakthrough coaching, which
Yeah.
99% of coaches are not taught to do because they don't have the mindset training that I do. And it is nuanced because it's hard to explain, but like just for people that are listening, I'll give an example. Um, I'm trying to think of an example that isn't yours, but they're top of mind because we're talking. But I am thinking like, okay, so the second round of the mastermind, there's one coach in there specifically who was having some frustration with like content creation and stuff like that, content not converting. And, just, I think a lot of people like have felt this in business where you feel like you're outputting a lot and you're not reaping as much of reward as you could. Like you get to a mindset where you're like, well, I should already be making 30K months. Like not necessarily in an entitled way, but just in a way where you're like, my coaching is so great. Like, why are my words not conveying that? And so we had this, conversation, and I know from my own experience being in masterminds that a lot of coaches that are just focused on like um, conscious feedback, they'll just be like, okay, we'll try this, go post this, shift this, and you're like, okay, but you almost feel this level of dysregulation because you're immediately like, okay, but I'm feeling this way, and I have to take action from this. And something that I do, so like in that example or in that specific example, is that I ask deeper questions before we go into action, because a lot of times, like the words that you're, well, not a lot of times, 88% of time to 95% of time, the words that you're using, the actions and behavior and habits and stuff that you have are stemming from a subconscious place. So if you come to me and you're like, I'm frustrated because I, should be at 20K months and I'm not yet, and I don't understand, and, blah, 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 blah. And my immediate reaction is just go take this action. You could be taking action from a place that's actually not serving you and it's not serving your like highest evolution. So it could be, maybe you go post a post or something that like distracts your audience, or you go sit in your own mindset drama and create another offer because you think that's going to be the key. You just don't take action that actually aligns with the goals that you have. And so something that I will do is actually like ask you questions that get to the root of the issue. So with this coach specifically, we actually found that she wasn't convicted in actual, like her coaching actually. So there was a piece of her, a part of her that still thought, if I, get on my stories and I claim that I can help you do this, but what if I have a client that comes into my space and I don't get that transformation? Does that make me a liar? Does that make me, out of integrity? So there was this lack of conviction in her messaging. And so typically, if a coach is just like, well, go do this, you're not getting to the deeper root of the issue. And a lot of times you're losing your voice in that as well, too, versus coming back to yourself and then leading from that convicted place. I think some other examples, too, with you is like when you ask me a question, I'm always like, okay, well, is this like choice coming from a place of scarcity? Like if money wasn't an issue, what would be the clear, route that you would go here? So questions like that, that again, like actually get to the root of why you want to make that decision versus just moving from a disempowered place and just continuing to take action, because that just reinforces the fact that you have to do a lot to make money. So I think that those are some good examples too of like why that coaching is so powerful. And most coaches are not that way. They're going to say, well, tweak your messaging and do this and go post on TikTok. And why don't you say this on your stories? Or, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, that's the perfect way to explain what I experience 100%. Yeah.
Um, let's see. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. We haven't talked about hypno very much. You've been doing hypno for a very long time. And recently you told me that every time you listen to a client attraction hypno, you always sign a client. I know you have to hop off here pretty soon. So maybe we could just wrap it up by talking about the combination of hypno and strategy and just like, yeah, how that supported you over the last 4 years.
Yeah. Hypno is actually an insane, surreal experience. There are times when I talk to people who don't do hypno, and I'm like, "Oh wow, you really need hypno," because like it has changed my life in probably every aspect that I could ever ask for. I use hypnosis for everything that I possibly can, and the best part about the combination is that like there's a few like client attracting audios that I listen to, and literally I kid you not, every single time I listen to them like on repeat for a few days or whatever, somehow always somehow a client comes to me, and even if it doesn't fully follow through as being a client, it's usually an inquiry or a few inquiries or something like that, and I'm like, wow, like the ball is rolling, the momentum is happening. And so like it that piece of it is fantastic, and then alongside the strategy, so like to me the strategy is like, hey, look at this post, does it look, does it look good, should I add a testimonial here, like, those are very strategical tweaks to me, and at the same time using the hypno. And so it's like that is chef's kiss combo of anything you could do. I mean, you're like doing everything you're supposed to do, and then you can really like let go and like release and have the results come to you. I think that's one of the other pieces about hypno that is so fantastic, is it really feels like you're, first of all, it's so relaxing and just like the best experience ever. Second of all, you're like not in charge of making the change as long as you're listening to the hypno. Like you are in charge of it, but it's doing the work for you while you're in this relaxing state. And to me, it feels really good as someone who's like a perfectionist and like wants to, you know, before I started hypno, I was always constantly ruminating in my head of like, how can I make this work? How do I fix this? How do I do this? And I could like literally every single day I was always thinking and having the same thoughts over and over and over again. And it wasn't until hypnosis that I actually was able to create incredible results in my business. And I think it's because I was finally able to like release the conscious attachment to these goals and desires and allow the subconscious change to happen. And then it also, on the back end of that, made the conscious effort so much easier because I wasn't thinking a bunch about what I post. I was just thinking, okay, I'm going to post and move the needle. Like, and so I was able to take action so much easier. So I think that that's where like the combination comes in. And yeah, that's why it's incredible.
And it just feels really good,
It's
right?
so fun. Yeah, it is
Like
like
I have never felt better leaving a hypno session. It's like the same feeling as leaving a massage, quite honestly.
100% yes. And you like also know that you're like, oh my God, that's what is that going to do for me? Like
I
it's
know.
kind of exciting to leave a session and be like, I can't wait to see how that shows up for me in my life,
Hmm.
or like how it changes. And then you're doing something like recently I told Addison that there's an upper limits, like hitting upper limits audio as well that I've been listening to literally only for a few days. And I have been eating all my meals and making it to the gym. And there's just like so many things that I'm like, oh my God, wow. It's like then a few days later, you're like, oh, wait, that's how that's transformed my life. That's so cool. And you just see it happening right before your eyes without you even like really fully registering or having to think extra hard about, I need to go to the gym today. It's just like, okay, I'm going to do that. It's just like what I'm going to do. It's like second nature. That's what happens with clients and content and money and all the things. So, yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it, is that instead of like just trying so hard, like to be her, that person you want to be, you just reprogram as her and then you just are her. And it's not this like hard push. So instead of you, saying, tomorrow I'm not going to snooze my alarm and I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the gym, like you don't even think about it. You just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Takes
Yeah.
the drama out. Yeah.
One of my clients recently was saying almost that exact same thing. She's in a one-on-one hypnotherapy container, and she was like, as she was reminiscing on like her past week, and she's only done 2 sessions with me, she's like, I don't crave sweets anymore. That wasn't even a goal that I have that I had. I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, what else did she say? Something about, yeah, her eating. She was like, I used to eat out a lot because I'm busy. I have a full-time job and I run this business, and I've just like been making the time to meal prep, and that's not even something I was working towards. And she's like, what is this magic?
It is magic. It really is.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what you said too about the thoughts is really important, because that's where a lot of people are at, where they have these constant ruminating thoughts. Like they wake up almost immediately with these dominant negative thoughts about their business, and they don't think that that is dictating their results, but it is. And it isn't necessarily that your conscious thoughts create your reality. It's your dominant thoughts that run every single day on repeat that create your reality and affect how you show up in your business, your energy behind your content, and everything. So
Yeah.
every entrepreneur should be doing hypnosis. It should be a non-negotiable. Like it should be like a part of like it should be like taxes. Like you have to do it and you have to commit to it.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that you want to do. If you want to do anything in your business for success, you'll want to do that. Like not a meditation, not a journal prompt,
No,
not an affirmation. Like no, do hypno and you'll see
no.
immediate results. It's insane.
I mean, I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to write down affirmations and say them in the mirror every single day. I don't have time, to sometimes even make a vision board, or all of that feels like if I want to do it and it feels like it's fun or I desire to do it, then I'll do it. But there's this pressure to add all of the things that aren't necessary into your day that don't actually make any shifts. And so that's the thing about hypnosis, is that if you make the time to do it, even if it's once a week, you'll see the shifts in everything else without even having to consciously think about it. So all the other stuff just kind of feels like a waste of time to me.
Yeah.
Not that meditation is bad or that affirmations are bad. If you like them and they make you feel good, then definitely do it.
Yeah. I think the only thing is like EFT tapping, because to me
Oh
that
yeah, I love EFT.
that feels like I'm like talking to my subconscious directly. I don't know why, but it does. So,
EFT is great too.
yeah.
And breath work.
And sound bowls.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. There are other things that are just like feel so good, of course. But do you have any last thoughts or anything that you want to share if someone's like watching and is on the fence or anything like that?
My last thoughts are that I just want to reiterate how fantastic of a leader Addison is, and how I'm genuinely so honored to consistently be in her world and in her space. If that's being coached by her, or if that's being in her back end, like all of it, I've just been able to see her, or if it's being her friend, like it has genuinely changed my perspective on like how we operate as women and leaders and like business owners in general. I'm constantly looking up to her and adoring her and all of the things, not putting her on a pedestal, but just like so convicted by um like seeing how she operates and figuring out what that means for me and how I can hold myself in that integrity as well. So I think for anybody on the fence for the mastermind, you'll have a fantastic experience for all of the reasons I listed. And it would just be like an incredible, it would change your life to be led by her, honestly.
Everything that you just said, first of all, makes me want to cry. And then the second thing I was thinking is like, that's all hypno. Because I used to be someone early on in my business that didn't eat until 3 p.m. and worked, like was so overwhelmed in my business and was doing things constantly and didn't have time for family and friends, and like, was just stressed all the time. And I would say I want to go to the gym and I wouldn't do it. Or, my meals weren't healthy. I was eating out a lot, like all of those shifts. And like what you look up to is genuinely subconscious reprogramming. And so it is cool to even kind of reflect on that for myself, but also makes me want to cry.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. It was so fun to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.